What's up, storytellers? Iron Garlic here, and today I've got an awesome guest. We're going to talk about running successful joint ventures. We're going to talk about OPA, how to grow, because this is literally one of the fastest ways to grow your business, grow your email list. It is the way really a lot of people are doing it. A lot of the big names did it. Oprah did it. Dr. Oz did it. Russell Brunson talks about it. I've got the expert on what are called JVs, joint ventures today. He's giving us the good, the bad, the ugly. One of my great friends and the founder of Jviology. We'll talk a little bit about that. He's going to answer all your questions. And if you are here and you have any questions about JVs, put them in the comments. Let us know you're here. But Jay Fiset, thank you for being here.
Ian, thank you so much for having me. I always like hanging out with you, and we are going to have some fun. So,
Yes.
wicked good topic.
Yes.
I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is true, but I just posted all over Facebook that you invented OPA, other people's audience. Did you? Is that yours, or did you borrow it?
I did. I invented it yesterday. I was like,
Okay,
this is
good.
this is really what we need to call it. It is other people's audiences. And I wrote, it's interesting because I wrote an email out and I was talking about it because my dad is credited with bringing the euro to the sandwich to the United States. And we're not Greek, but the funny part is when I look back on it, he really made it famous, the euro famous, by other people's audiences because he went to fairs and all that stuff and went from place to place to place in carnivals and music festivals and sold it. But Jay, let's get into, we're going to talk about the mechanics. We're going to talk about how you all can do it, what goes into a successful joint venture. I'm going to ask Jay, about how to find joint venture partners because there is an art and a science to it. But first of all, let's just quickly redefine what a joint venture is and what kind of success people can have with it.
Well, in a nutshell, a joint venture in its simplest form is when one or more organizations come together and they share network, wisdom, resources, experience, a network, of course, being other people's audiences, to come together to solve a problem for the clients. And when we do that, based upon what our inputs are, then we share the rewards of that process. And time and again, I use this example because I ran a personal development company for almost 30 years. We still have it, and we ran it as a closed system. And in terms of what people can make from it, they can make any amount of money. But my personal experience is, I worked like a madman for over 15 years to break 7 figures in annual sales. And when I say a madman, I'm a Saskatchewan farm kid, so that means actually really working like 16 hours a day, not pretending to work 16 hours a day. And then as I began to understand this JV process and I joined a couple of strategic joint venture communities and I began to put the pieces together, the best I've done is to do $1 million, 7 figures in sales in 3.5 days. So 15 years of working like a madman to 3.5 days. I'll take the 3.5 days all for the rest of my life, to be frank. So, but the truth is, even if it just made somebody $100,000, depending on where you're at, or it made somebody $10 million, which I have clients and friends who have done that kind of process regularly, it is the fastest, most direct route to scale when strategy is applied properly.
And you've had success, but now you've started Jviology. And if you guys look below, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's actually a link to the Jviology Ultimate Guide to Joint Ventures. Is a checklist. You can download it. You can click it. It's free. It's awesome. But you started Jviology to start helping entrepreneurs.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so just please, gang, because I get judgmental about checklists. This is not just a checklist. We called it that because for simplicity, but it's actually like a recipe book. The 40 things you got to do when you're actually being a JV partner for someone else. The 40 things you got to do when you want to actually JV properly for somebody else. It is the exact step-by-step guide, not just a little checklist. Okay, sorry.
Oh, no problem. That's great to know.
My own judgments about.
Yeah, no, yeah, because we did that. We downloaded something, and it's like, and I'll tell you, folks, here, and Jay is an awesome person, but he also gives so much, and that's why I have him on. That's why he was on Giants of Video. I've been to his events. I personally have made 6 figures from being a part of that. I mean, me personally, the company has, my company. So, it doesn't all go in my pocket. If it was, I'd be sending Jay buckets of wine. If you want to send Jay anything, send him some wine. But Jay also, if you go to one of his events, if you get any of his content, it is not cursory. even the free stuff is incredibly powerful. So make sure to get that. But Jay, so you started Jviology, and what was your goal with starting Jviology and really getting joint ventures out there?
Man, can I back up the bus and tell a little context this?
Yeah.
Because here's the honest God truth is I didn't deliberately start Jviology. This is one of those things that organically grew out of demand. And I think that, one of the lessons of this whole thing, whether it's joint ventures or entrepreneurship in general, is to listen to what people want, for goodness sakes. So here's what happened is that we ran this brand called Mastermind to Millions, where we helped coaches, authors, experts position, launch, and lead their own masterminds. It became very clear to me that the fastest way, because I had been doing face-to-face work and didn't have a big list or this huge reach. And in fact, in the United States, nobody knew who the hell I was or cared. Who's the weird Canadian guy? So we had to start somewhere. So I joined a couple of strategic joint venture communities, and it became really clear to me. It's like, well, the reality is there's probably, 10,000 entrepreneurs in Canada that I don't know, because I was flying to the US to do this. So I thought, I'm going to start my own JV community, and I'll do it primarily with Canadians. And I started doing this thing called the Banff Jv Summit because it's held in Banff, Alberta. My naming conventions are pretty awesome. It's like if you're... Anyway, and what transpired was it was invite only. And what I was building strategically was my own joint venture community that I knew would help distribute the Mastermind to Millions brand. And we did that twice a year for a couple of years. And as this was going on, what happened was I kept getting people asking to attend the summit. And I would ask them a series of questions. It's like, so are you here? Are you there? Do you have this ready? Do you have that ready? It's like, no, I don't have any of that stuff, and I really don't know how to do it. And I'd say, well, you need to go find that. And when you're ready, call me. I'll see if you qualify for an invitation to our summit. And it just continued to grow at this crazy rate, where finally I decided, it's like, well, you know what, if nobody else is doing the training to the caliber that I want, and people keep coming to me as the first step, why don't I just start doing some basic training? And that's where we created Jviology Live and the entire Jviology brand, which we formalized in 2017, like 2.5 years after we started doing this summit. So it was an organic process. I didn't have a big take over the world strategy at that stage of the game. It was just simply responding to the ongoing requests of people who wanted to learn how to get a steady stream of leads that are fundamentally free and scale their back-end income through partnerships and collaboration. So I wish I could say it was like, ooh, I had one of those moments of epiphanies, but it was just simply the face of demand and requests over a span of years where it's like, okay, damn it, we'll do it.
So you've had all sorts of companies come through you've helped tons of people. You've helped them sell high ticket. You've helped them build communities with JVs, with joint ventures, and run successful JVs. And I want to talk about the elements and how to ask in a little bit, but who should be doing JVs?
So I might have, the old syndrome of when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So that might hold true a little bit, but here's the honest to goodness truth is that I really fervently believe that everyone should be doing joint ventures. Everyone. Excuse me. Now, of course, occasionally I run into somebody who has, paid traffic nailed. And it's like, no, I'm in control. You're in control until somebody else, Google, Facebook, YouTube, changes their algorithm. Then you have to figure the goddamn thing out again. So even if you have a ton of clients, even if you have solved paid traffic, it is foolhardy, in my humble opinion. And by the way, on the other side of that, even if you're just starting, you don't have a clue which way is up. Every single person should be building the relationships for what I've come to call an entrepreneurial safety network. Mm-hmm. So that's really, when we do this wisely, it's an entrepreneurial safety network with the systems that are simple, clean, and easy to actually collaborate with the right people. And to leave that off your marketing strategy, in my humble opinion, is the same as saying, it's like, I'm going to get out into the entrepreneurial world, but I'm going to just tie one hand behind my back, because we wouldn't want it to be too easy now, would we? It's ridiculous if you're an entrepreneur and you have the capacity to build relationships to not be doing joint ventures. It's just simply silly, unwise, ridiculous. I could say other words. So everyone who's an entrepreneur, in my humble opinion.
Well, and if you look at professional services, if I sold to consulting and marketing to attorneys for years, and I walk in the door and I'm like, well, how do you get your leads? And they say through referrals, but I don't do any marketing. I'm like, that's marketing. Referrals are marketing. And this is just, it's always blew my mind. I'm like, that's marketing. If someone else is telling someone about your business, that's marketing. But joint ventures essentially are referral-based marketing on steroids, right?
Well, fundamentally, and I use I'll just use a moment or two to clarify my language, because I lump a whole bunch of things together. So I use the word joint venture as an umbrella that really covers three fundamentals in my view. And by the way, it has nothing to do with the legal definition of joint ventures for any of you lawyers listening, okay? So to me, there's three pieces. There is fundamentally the simplest thing, affiliate marketing, which is you buy something, they say, hey, you say you like it, they say, hey, do you want to sign up as an affiliate? And you send that link out in an email, you put it in your signature file, maybe you write a blog about it, and if somebody buys something, they send you enough money to buy a Starbucks. Now, just to be clear, there are people who make 7 figures doing that, but it's not the norm. It's usually no relationship, no friction, impersonal link and transaction, and you make a little bit of money. Oh, well, I'm fine. I do some of that. The next piece is what I actually call, strategic joint ventures. This is where a project has a beginning, a middle, and end. So, for example, the Giants of Video was a project that had a beginning, a middle, and end. We're going to work together in this. We're going to co-promote it. We're going to create some videos together. We're going to share all these pieces. We're going to send it out. We're going to do our very best to convert, and then we're going to split money based on the resources that we contributed in a fair and equitable way. And if we liked it, it'd be like, hell yeah, and I'd love to do that again, which I would. Or if we didn't like it, we'd just wash our hands and say, that was an interesting experience, and on we go. There's no legal obligation. There's no getting married. There's no setting up a business, any of those sorts of things. We just get to come together for the purposes of a project and share our network, wisdom, resources, and experience in a manner that contributes and solves clients' problems. Now, that to me is the sort of the easiest route to play, where we can build a relationship and have a long-term value. And this is where we have access to other people's audiences without having to buy the audience, without having to pay for those sorts of things. We just collaborate in a way that's fair. And then the third part for me is what we call strategic partnerships. And this is where we might embed content in somebody else's program. So I have like 27 different digital programs that use pieces of my content in their program. They say, hey, Jay's the expert at this. He's going to teach you a couple of things. If you're interested, you should phone him. Or phone him. How can you tell I'm old? you should follow the link and buy his shit. But that's really the process. And those strategic partnerships is every single client they get is exposed to me. And I do the same in terms of our live events. So we've got something called Jviology Live, an incredible event that we now do online, where I have a whole community of people that are consistently in that process. They've got booths, they've got little features, they've got a whole variety of things where if I get a client there, they are going to come into contact with those people. So those are strategic partnerships. And I, for the purposes of communication, call all three of those joint ventures. And each of them is a little bit different, but it all is this idea of collaboration for the solving the problem and making everybody money.
So can you give me an example of one of these successful joint ventures that, you told us about Mastermind to Millions, but let's talk, maybe about one of your clients or one that you've run.
Well, I could give you a whole whack of them. Do you have an industry you'd prefer it in? Let's talk. I mean, we have a lot of professional services, agencies, videographers. Do you have anyone that in the agency world? I do it in the agency world. So, I mean, yeah. Do you have anyone you want to talk about there? Yeah, and I'll give a couple of examples in terms of how those interplay and how they interweave. So I'm going to use a mother and son. They got two separate businesses. He is an agency where he builds websites, platforms, all those sorts of things. In the middle of actually inventing think of it like ClickFunnels, but for building apps, so that people can have their own app, but in a ClickFunnels type manner. Smart kid, Matthew McGregor, and his mom, Karen McGregor. So here's a very interesting JV. And they have both been parts of our Jviology community almost since the beginning. Karen started attending our Jviology Summit before Jviology existed. So she was back at the Banff Summit. Matthew I think he just turned 22 today. And he is the only 22-year-old Canadian I know that has a tax problem. Which I don't know about you. When I was 22, I was just trying to stay out of jail problem. It wasn't a tax problem. um, I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. So she has a speaking training business and does very, very well. And since participating in Jviology, quite literally, almost her entire business is built through JVs. So I should look it up. She gave a testimony of, she came to the last Jviology Summit, did deals with 4 people, and in a matter of 4 months, did $222,000 that would not have existed in any other way. Mm-hmm. What's fascinating about this is all of her people who learn how to speak also are trying to build intellectual property businesses. So she has a JV with her son, Matthew, when she refers clients to him, where he builds the entire piece out. They do the video project, they do the speaking reel, they do the website, they do the funnel, they do the click funnel setup, they do that entire scenario. And he built, not just with the JV with his mother, but much broader than that. He built a strong 6-figure business quite literally in months. His last testimonial from coming to Jviology Live, where he came as an attendee, he wasn't a sponsor, he wasn't on the stage, any of those pieces, is that he did 42,000 US in 30 days after Jviology Live, joint venturing with people in the room.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it works at every freaking level. And quite literally, in terms of our deals together, we've done a couple of projects since. I hosted him for the webinar that promotes his new software, this platform that does apps. I call it ClickFunnels for apps, but I guess that's probably trademark infringement. So, but you get the point.
I mean, if he's not writing it out, that's fine. Everyone uses Uber. We're the Uber of this. So,
yes. Okay.
Yeah. That's...
So we did a webinar just to finish that thing in terms of how these cycle both ways. So we did a webinar for him because a bunch of my audience could use that platform for certain in terms of reaching people more effectively. And, we did $38,000 in a 60-minute webinar, which we split at 60-40. You got 60, I got 40. So that's a fast, easy win. And again, he's an agency. He runs an agency.
Yeah. And, and this is the other part of JVs too, because you're thinking now, do you need, about getting your own money? But then there's that nice part too. If you're sharing your audience, it's a win-win because you're making money with just sharing your audience and providing value to your audience. Right?
Yes.
And you've got a decent amount of revenue, I'm sure, coming from your JVs, which is great. But do you need, if I'm going to go out there and start a JV, do I need an email list? Do I need an audience of my own already?
Yes and no is the answer.
Gotcha.
Okay, so lots of people can start in this space with little or no list. So quite literally, when I joined our first JV community, I only had 1,800 people on my email list. That's it, 1,800 people. Now, I had about 22,000 people who'd been through our doors of our personal development transformation company, but I didn't have their emails. We didn't collect them. That was all, sort of like a paper mail thing. So if you're starting from scratch, joint ventures are a marvelous way to actually begin to build the list. So one of the easiest joint ventures in the entire universe is if you come up with a good value proposition, like for example, the checklist. For any of you trying to figure out, so what does this actually take? You should download the checklist, which is the recipe, how to do it, all the rest of it. It's great value. Quite frankly, I could charge for that. So come up with something of great value and make a proposal to somebody that says, look, why don't we just do a list swap? You don't have to have affiliate links. You don't have any of those sorts of things. I've got a whole 200 people on my list. Would you mail this to 200 people on your list? I'll mail it to mine. And we started working together to collaborate to grow our lists properly. So it doesn't matter where you are in the stage of development of your business. You should be JVing. Now, there are different JV strategies based upon where you're at. Should you be focusing on list building? Should you be focusing on conversion processes like webinars and those sorts of things? Should you be focusing on creating digital content? All different based on your stage of business. But the fundamental premise of whatever my business problem is, I need to grow my list. You should joint venture for it. I need to scale and actually create more products, services, and experiences for my clients. You should joint venture for that. I need to figure out how to have a better conversion structure, whether that's a one-on-one, whether that's a sales page, whether that's a webinar. You should joint venture. Any resource that you require in your business is accessible to you fundamentally for free if you're paying attention through joint ventures. So don't use the bullshit example or excuse of I don't have a list, or I'm too new, or I don't have the technology. Can I share a cool bricks and mortar example to reinforce that?
Not at all.
No bricks and mortar for you guys?
Of course. Yeah, I would love to hear it. Bricks and mortar, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, because sometimes people are like, no, we're just talking digital domain.
No.
Whistler, BC. We go to Whistler almost every summer. Kids love mountain biking. It's a beautiful spot, blah, blah, blah. Since the Olympics, it has grown like mad with restaurants, those sorts of things. They now have like the hawkers out. It's like, hey, book your reservation. You know, like that. It's getting to be that kind of touristy. Anyway, we promptly ignore absolutely everybody, but we've been out mountain biking. We're hot as hell, and it is hot as blazes there. And we're sort of walking around looking for what we're going to do. And I see this woman underneath a little canopy. She's not as aggressive as all the other ones. And as we walk by, she sees that we're a family. She goes, hey, you think the family would like to get into an air-conditioned movie? Because she can see we're cooking. And it's like, oh, that woman has my attention. So we go back. Here's the essence of it. She says, you can all buy a dinner and a movie for $20 each. The only hook is you have to buy a drink. And it's like, I don't know what it is for you guys, but honest to God, a bag of popcorn in Canada costs $20. You don't get dinner. And so it's like, well, tell me more. Long and the short of it is this. There's a restaurant right across the hall is a theater. And for $20, we can go to the restaurant. We have to show up at 5:15 and we can have whatever they want on the menu. It's not a restricted menu as long as we buy a drink. That could be a pop, a coffee, a beer, or whatever the hell it is. And then we can go get the movie. Now, what I discover afterwards, I'll give you a short version, is that the restaurant was actually an after hours hangout for all of the kids and people that work in the service industry there. But to have a liquor license, they had to have a restaurant. So they had this restaurant that was being underutilized because nobody actually went there during the regular hours, but they had to pay for the staff and all the rest of it. So the guy says, walks over to the guy who owns the theater and says, look, I got this shitty restaurant that is empty all the time. Nobody gets here until midnight, but I'd like to work the crew. So they come up with a deal that says this: if you do the dinner and movie, because they have excess capacity, the theater also has excess capacity. We go there, we get a little coupon, we wander over to the next thing. Now I know in a theater, they make their money on the condiments. So I'm thinking this is a little bit weird. It might be a little bit difficult, but remember one thing in joint ventures, the controlling of the traffic flow is the most important piece. So control the traffic flow is the most important piece. So we finish dinner. They do not offer us dessert there, by the way. It's like there's a whole machine. And by the way, the entire restaurant is full. We get there, there's 4 tables. By the time we leave, there's 45. We wander across and I say to Corey, it's like, well, we just ate. We're not going to get any condiments. So we're in line to give the guy the ticket, the coupon that we got to go to the show that we want. As we get to the front of the line, I hand the ticket over and they say, oh, you've got the dinner and a movie coupon. That's awesome. You just need to trade these coupons in for your ticket over at the concession stand. Now, remember the flow of traffic.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I say to the family, you guys stay here. I go over to the concession stand because I want to just get the tickets fast. And while I'm standing there and I can see my little guy come up beside me, he pulls on and he goes, he has a little bit of a lisp at the point. He goes, well, we didn't have any dessert. Then I can feel my other one on this side. And so by the time I get the tickets and we exchange them, I spend $42 on popcorn, Twizzlers, and a bunch of other shit. And I giggle because I think it's funny, so I'll get back in line. Away we go. Anyway, here's my point to this, is that if you think about it, you don't need technology. It could be a coupon. You don't need a list. All you need is access and traffic to the right people who have exactly the problem, either that you solve or that you create, and we share those clients. This was a perfect joint venture that, by the way, they've been doing now for 3 years, and excess capacity on both sides is used up. So they just knocked it out of the park. So if you start thinking of it from that perspective of what problem do I solve? With food and entertainment, right? There's a perfect alignment. And how do I build a relationship with other people that do this? Whether your traffic flow is 300, 3,000, or 30,000, the JV still works.
It does. Yeah. And I mean, and especially like we were talking about before, like we work with a lot of videographers and video agencies. And, you know, if you're a videographer and you're an agency, you should not be, this is, you know, a big mindset shift for me that took way too long and cost too much money, is that you shouldn't be doing everything in your business. You shouldn't be this full service agency. You should have those JVs and have those people, right, and be working with them, sending business back and forth. You get to focus more on your business and you serve your clients more. I think that's
1000%.
It's huge, huge. And that's why, if you're a videographer, and I tell you this, if you're running a video agency, you need to be building these relationships. I would say 75% of our big ticket comes from these JVs, because also people will buy more because there's a higher level of trust, right?
Well, so here's another way we like to think about this, is that what we really, if you're going to become great at JVs and you're really going to serve your clients, is you want to shift your role and how you're seen by your client from being a service provider, because you don't want to be the videographer or the video producer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that might be mechanically what you do, but that's not how you want your client to see you. You want to see them you want them to see you as a trusted advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And when you shift from service provider to trusted advisor, then suddenly this entire process of the problems and the solutions that your client faces, they come to you. So quite literally, the call just before this is, I just got a call. Somebody has a little software thing in production and was offered $350,000 for 15% of the company. Interesting little deal. But guess who that person called to ask if that was a good idea and what they should consider?
Yeah, you.
They called me.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't call me because that's my area of expertise. They called me because I am the trusted advisor that they will, number one, take my opinion, and they know that I will connect them to the person that would make the most significant difference in making that decision. So when that role happens, and by the way, 2 days ago I had one about somebody's relationship is in a little bit of trouble. How could you help? Like, the range of which people come to you now changes the game utterly and completely.
Yeah. It's a huge difference, because it changes the relationship. It changes how they spend money with you. It changes how much they're willing to spend money. It changes referrals. It will transform your business. And that's another reason I want to have Jay on here. So let's move into the mechanics a little bit more. What are the elements of a successful joint venture?
Great question. So first and foremost is this, and I like to think of it in that there's a triad, what we call the joint venture mindset. And it really does start at the mindset. And the first one is this, is that it has to be driven by our clients' needs. So, going back to our listing, I absolutely know there are people that have these huge monstrous lists that are really just looking for something that will convert, which isn't necessarily directly related to what is the problem that my client has that I can actually solve. So to me, top of the list is this: all JVs should be driven by our clients' needs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next piece is this: a grounding of abundance. Most people fail in joint ventures because they're either fearful or greedy or both. And what that simply means is this: in our community, Jviology, which we call the perfect mix of people, fun, and profit, we have a belief that is a joint venture is a game of I'll go first. And what that simply means is, let us contribute first. Let us give value first. Let us become meaningful first. Let us actually become relevant first, so that you can see who we are and that our stand is to actually make a positive difference. And you can't do that if you're coming from a position of scarcity. So it's got to be this idea of abundance. A friend and JV partner of mine, Glenn Ledwell, who's done probably the most in the personal development realm in the whole JV space, like something in the neighborhood of $13 million, some crazy amount. And his whole thing in terms of testing people's scarcity and abundance and how that works is that if somebody is a cheapo at the table or at the bar, like skips their buying of a round or that kind of a thing, it's like, I just won't JV with them, because when things go awry, and they always go a little awry, at least shit happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that they will opt or lean on cheaping out instead of leaning on giving the benefit of the doubt to your partner. Is that you have to have that grounding of abundance. So clients needs abundance. And then the third part is this, which can be incredibly difficult for lots of entrepreneurs, and it speaks to what you're talking about in terms of the agencies, is this interdependence. Lots of us as entrepreneurs want to, strike out on our own, be the lone wolf, be the, all of those pieces, be the one-stop shop, and we'll take care of it all because we don't want our client going anywhere else. It's like, you've got to be able to build interdependent relationships that actually, please hear this, magnify your greatness and compensate for your challenges. And what most people do is exactly the opposite, is that they pull away from relationships that magnifies their weaknesses and diminishes their greatness. So clients' needs, abundance, interdependence, and that all, when that overlaps properly, think of it like a Venn diagram, that's where the win-win-win JV exists.
Wow. And so now we've thought about the win-win of it, and make sure folks, a lot of this is in that quote unquote checklist, which is a guide, which is probably, I haven't seen the new one yet, but everything I've ever gotten from Jay is amazing, to the point where I'm like, Jay, this is so much information. Can you have someone tell me where to look? So now we've run the successful and we've got the elements of it, and I've got the abundance mindset. How do I find the right JV partners?
I love that question. And by the way, I think it is the question that every single entrepreneur should be asking, even if they hadn't thought of it. But I'll without too much foreshadowing, I will just spit it out directly, which is this: the single most powerful decision that I believe any entrepreneur can make is this: is what joint venture communities do I join? That's it. Is that, and I'll give you examples of where I think people do this in a goofy way and where it can be incredibly accelerated. So in the good old days, when there were these things called live events, and people would go to live events to meet other people and potentially sell their stuff and meet a JV partner. In the old days, is that people would go to other people's events to try and find JV partners. Except that the event was not designed to actually get JV partners. The event was designed to market, sell, and promote the product, services, and experiences of the person who was actually running the event. And the truth of the matter is, you could go to 10 or 20 of those things, and if the context and the framework of the event and the meetings and the people isn't expressly for joint ventures, it's an incredible amount of work, and it's like pushing rope uphill. It's a little bit on the silly side. Mm-hmm. So the fast track to this is you join a community that its express purpose, and I need to say that again, its express purpose is to set up joint venture partnerships and to connect people to scale their business together. And it should have a stable set of jargon or languages. So in our world, it's like, hey, I'm your upstream partner, which means I create the problem that you solve. Or, hey, I'm your downstream partner. I solve the problem that you create. So that there's a way to shortcut that conversation. And there's also a standard culture. So our culture is a joint venture is a game of I'll go first. So we don't have people wandering around in our community saying like, hey, I know you got a big list. Would you mail my offer to you? Like, that doesn't happen in our community. Mm-hmm. It can't, because it's inconsistent with the values. So there should be language, there should be training, there should be values, so that you can just jump in and find the right people that are going to serve your clients and make you fantastic money and make you look good while doing it. That's what you need. And quite frankly, there's a multitude of communities all over God's green earth. I happen to be a little bit biased, thinking that ours might be the best.
Yeah, it's a wonderful community. It is.
That was the Canadian in me. It might be the best. but the honest God truth is, I truly don't care what community you join. But if you're going to do JVs, you need to be in a community where there's 100, 200, 500 people waiting and wanting to hear from you to see if there's a way in which you can collaborate and make money and solve problems for your clients. That is the fast track. And don't dick around with anything other than that, because it's silly.
It is. And it took me a long time to find those communities. I spent a ton of money and frustration, and if you don't go to the right one, sometimes it would make you think that you're in it's not worth it, and it completely is. And I think this is super important. Really, it seems logical, but it's something that people skip over. They're like, oh, I'm in a community, they should share. Oh, they don't. And then I'm not going to find one. And Jay talks about a lot of this stuff inside of all of his content. Make sure you're following him on Facebook. And we've got a few comments on here. Let me see here. Michelle said that the content's fantastic and Jay always over delivers. And then Vaishali said, hey, Michelle. And
hey, Vishali, good to see you.
So they're hanging out here. They're doing their joint ventures on the side. And Elaine here said fabulous and powerful, and confirmed that, really the abundance mindset's important. Folks, if you have any questions, this is live right now. And even if it's not live, if you're watching this later on, put your comments down below. We'll answer them. I'll grab Jay when he's back from his world tour to sunny Vancouver to answer your questions. But let me see here. Jay, I've got a couple more questions for you before.
Okay.
So what, when we do this and we're running the successful joint venture, we now found the community of this joint venture. What are the elements, the technical elements that we need to be thinking about in running a joint venture? What if we don't think about that will cause a joint venture to fail? What causes the joint venture to fail?
So those, I'm going to call those two separate questions.
I like to put two questions into one, so
I'll just talk faster answer them.
Okay.
So here's the big thing, and I am certain anybody who's watching this has had the experience, or if you tried joint ventures, of feeling sometimes let down by your partners. Your partners didn't execute properly. They didn't do what they said they were going to do. Blah blah blah. In almost, I'd say 90% of the circumstances, it's not the joint venture partner's issue. And the assumptions around, I asked Bob to support this project 8 weeks earlier, and then 8 weeks later, they didn't do anything. And it's like, well, they said they would. That is not the joint venture partner's problem. That is the person who's doing the promotions problem. So top of the list is this, is number one, you need to have a management system that manages communication between the person who's running it and the people who are promoting it. And that communication system can be a combination of Facebook, it can be a combination of texting, it can be a combination of phone calls, it can be a combination of training, webinars, and support. It can be all of those pieces. But here's the honest God truth is, step one is epic and consistent communication with the person in the organization who said yes, and the person in the organization who's responsible for taking the actions that are supposed to be taken. Mm-hmm. That, I just cannot say that loudly, clearly enough. That's number one. Number two, then you need a technology system that has some form of link tracking. So we know the behavior of what's going on. If somebody said that they were going to mail and they said that they mailed and there wasn't a single click on their link, we have a technology problem or we have a deceit. Mm-hmm. Now we will assume that it's a technology problem and say, hey, nothing's happened on our end. Can you double check the link? And maybe they used a bit.ly shortener that did a redirect, which by the way has happened.
And that's happened to me where, and it's like I've had to backtrack and the person actually sent me 40 actual customers and they just used the wrong link. Right. And so it happens.
I've had it happen too. So, and by the way, that's going back to this idea of abundance and relationships. So we always give the partner the benefit of the doubt. It's like, hey, did something go awry? How can we help? What transpired? Which is different than sometimes people assume that it's like, oh, he's screwed me because he said he was going to, and that shit's silly. Just don't. So there has to be a tracking system, and I don't care what it is. And I am technology agnostic. I happen to use Infusionsoft. That's because I happen to use Infusionsoft, and I'm a believer in putting it all together. But whatever it is, a system that generates links, please hear this, that is transparent for your partner. What that means is your partner can log into your system in the back end and say, hey, I sent an email, 100 people clicked on the link, 10 people bought, and my partner owes me $5,000. You have to have that degree of transparency to really scale this at a large level. Then the next piece is this. We call it swipe copy, but let's just think of it as promotional tools. So these are pre-written emails. This is pre-written social media. This is a bunch of images that work. This is that piece that makes it easy for your partner to say, oh, copy and paste, add my link, send it out, or post it on my page. That's it. The less friction in that process, the better. And by the way, here's the thing. I'm going to use Infusionsoft as an example. In the early days, we set all that stuff up in behind the Infusionsoft login piece for people to go get. They never do that. You just give it to them directly with their link, take care of it, reduce friction. They will go and do marvelous things. And then you need, please hear this, and for the love of all things holy in the world, practice this before you're in the JV space. You need a conversion mechanism that works. And I don't care what your conversion mechanism is. That's a sales page that people actually buy shit on. That is a webinar or masterclass that at the end you have a decent conversion rate of somewhere between, depending on your price point, should be between 5% and 15% on the lower end, depending on price point. But it actually works. A one-on-one conversation that actually has them become an agency client. you need to have a way that the leads that your partner sent spend money so that you can then, and by the way, the fourth and final is when people earn money, get it to them as quick as you possibly can. The behavior of taking the action and the risk and putting money in their bank is a monumentally important process. And those are the biggies. And it doesn't sound like much. And it can be done at, at a level 2 of complexity. It can be done at, on a scale of 1 to 10, it can be done at a level of 17 complexity. Complexity isn't the issue. It is each, regardless of it, each one of those 4 pieces has to happen, and it has to happen in a meaningful and powerful way.
Wow. And it's critical. It's important. Jay's content will take you through this. I've used a lot of it. He has a lot of the email copy available. He has a lot of that stuff out there, and it's amazing. It is amazing. But Jay, thank you so much. This has been incredible. Do you have, so can you just real quick describe what's in the checklist one more time down below?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we want people to begin to do, and I'm going to just back up here. So most of the time, like this process I was just outlining, which is, we need to have traffic. We need to have a technology system. Most of the time, that's not where you start. And people have this backwards. It's like, I'm going to start joint venturing when my book is done, or when my digital program is done, or when. That's not true. You start joint venturing, please hear this, as a partner of someone who has all that stuff done. It's how you learn. Okay. So first and foremost, in that checklist, you're going to find the 40 things that you should be looking for. If you say, hey, I'm going to joint venture for you, I'd love to. Do they have these things in order? Now, by the way, not all 40 things apply to every project, depending upon complexity. If it's level 2, maybe 14 of them apply. But these are the 40 things that you should start thinking about. It's like, hey, if I'm going to put my ass on the line and support somebody, have they done all the pieces that are necessary? So that's point 1. So it'll just tell you what you should be looking for. And then the other side of it is like, okay, you're now ready to promote your book, promote your digital program, promote your agency, promote your video course, whatever it happens to be. These are the 40 things that I should think about making available and organized and structured for my partners to win. And it just steps you through each of those perspectives so you can see, hey, I can win literally just by promoting other people. I can also epically win by having other people promote me. And if I put the two together, that's a recipe for $1 million in 3 days, at least for us.
Wow. That's $1 million in 3 days. I'd like that. But it takes work. It takes work. Jay has done the hard work, and that starts with that checklist. He's made the mistakes, and he's a genuinely great human being, and he's going to help you out. A super smart guy. So make sure to do that. Make sure to follow him. Make sure to pay attention to it. Make sure to listen to his content, because not only does he give great content, but he gives it like 10 times as fast. So you're getting, for every minute, you're getting like actually 20 minutes of content. So
I'll give people fair warning. Is that I've been told that I'm the only person that people have ever bought programs from that they can't listen at 2x speed. So I'm just naturally at 2x speed to try and help you out.
That is true. That is true. Well, Jay Fiset, thank you for coming. Make sure to sign up down below. And if you're for some reason listening to this on the podcast, and we put it on the podcast, or you're watching the same word, you can go to StoryCrews.com/JV. That's StoryCrews, CREWS.com/JV. JV, not Jay Fiset, but JV. And you'll be able to download that checklist. But Jay, thank you so much for being here and telling us all about how to run successful JVs.
I love it, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Ian, as always.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for watching, and make sure to take action.